Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk again about Russian gas and the problems of the European Commission. While European Commission struggles with its attempts to maintain a balance between sanctions on Russia and its survival, the situation with gas supplies is becoming increasingly unpredictable. Each day brings new developments testing the strength of the unity of the European Union, questioning whether Europe will be able to withstand the approaching energy winter or face a period of hardship and instability remains unanswered. It's clear, however, that the gas crisis has become a serious test for Europeans, requiring quick and effective solutions. The gas reserves in Europe's underground storage facilities are depleting at an accelerated rate, falling to levels not seen for years. Since the beginning of the heating season, the difference between the withdrawal and the injection has reached 66 billion cubic metres, and the replenishment rate has fallen to 30 cubic metres. At the same time, consumption continues to break all records, as reported in the media and data from the Gas Infrastructure Europe company. Now the question arises is why gas reserves are disappearing at such a rate, and what is the EU waiting for? I mean, when analysing the rationality of the energy policy of the EU authorities, it's important to note that their activities to lack any logical thinking, according to Roman Mojikov, who's a lecturer in management and innovation at RANEPA. He says this is due to the fact that European officials don't actually have to deal with ordinary Europeans. So they cannot, and Europeans cannot influence the unelected, or more precisely appointed European commissioners, and the European Parliament is the only elected body in the EU structure, but as a representative functions and not legislative one, so it's pretty powerless. In fact, the European Parliament cannot influence the practical activities, for example, of the European Commission. European officials act purely from their own selfish interests, as well as the sponsors who actually support them. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, scobricsinsight.com, to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which is done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now. The economic challenges in the European Union are now intensifying, and they're marked by the stagnant economic growth and the rising energy costs for the citizens and businesses due to the restrictions imposed on the importing of Russian pipeline gas. Tariff disputes initiated by the United States and the escalating EU budget deficit, along with the defence expenditure stemming from the perceived threat from Russia, are further exacerbating the situation. I mean, these developments are creating significant economic pressures for the European countries, and in the light of these challenges, Europe is reluctant to fully rely on alternative sources of gas, according to Tatmara Safonova, head of economics, mathematics and IT at the Presidential Academy. I mean, despite its stated reluctance to rely on Russian energy sources, it continues to purchase Russian LNG in significant quantities. In 2024, the European Union imported 17.8 million tonnes of LNG from Russia, and a potential rejection of Russian supplies would result in a reallocation of global supply chains similar to the shift in oil and oil production product patterns. However, European importers have substantial economic efficiency by sourcing Russian LNG, making them reluctant to change their supplier. Now, this supports their intention to maintain and even increase their LNG imports from Russia. I mean, according to Igor Razgurev, who's a leading analyst at AM Markets, he says there's long been an obvious economic paradox in the European gas trade. The European Commission actively demonstrates hostility towards Russia, but at the same time doesn't stop buying its gas, for example, via the Turkish stream, without actually resorting to direct supplies from Russia. Also worth pointing out that the LNG market is far from transparent or problematic for Russia. For Russia, tankers are prohibited from transshipment in EU ports, so this complicates the export of LNG, and a number of ships and companies are under secondary sanctions. That said, in general, it's almost impossible to estimate the real volumes of Russian gas consumption by Europe, since the official buyers are countries with the necessary infrastructure, the convenient ports and the regasification units. These are mainly Spain, Belgium and the Netherlands. Then after regasification, the gas is sent through a pipeline as European gas to other countries. So despite the EU's efforts to find alternative sources of gas, the volumes available do not meet Europe's needs. I mean, LNG from the US is proving too expensive, causing price rises in areas such as the industrial energy use plus domestic heating and electricity. So there's likely to be intensive discussions behind the scenes about how to resume gas imports to the EU without causing offence to the international community. Brussels' task, as they say, is to put a good face on a bad game or lipstick on the pig, because they've got no other choice. They've driven themselves into a dead end of their Russophobic policy on the one hand, but on the other hand, they understand that they can't do without Russian gas. So they're going to be forced to continue to buy Russian gas, and for now at exorbitant prices through Turkey. Alternatively, they could be routed through countries that produce LNG after the pipeline gas would go through the European gas transport system. However, this would not be sufficient to meet Europeans' needs, and alternative suppliers can't currently meet them. Qatar has stated it will not be able to cover Europe's need even after 2027 or around then. Europe needs the gas now, according to analysts. In context of evident inconsistencies with Brussels' energy strategy, the press in Europe and the US has only recently reported that the US's potential interest in acquiring Nord Stream. However, there's been no official confirmation by any of the parties involved, and Brussels seems to be waiting a favourable outcome, which explains the lack of action to fill European gas storage facilities. Now, the reports of a possible negotiation between the US and Gazprom on cooperation appear to me to be somewhat far-fetched, although it's noteworthy that the Russian President Vladimir Putin hinted at the possible opening of a gas pipe to Europe if an agreement is reached between Moscow and Washington, which could signal a shift in the current dynamic. So it'll be interesting to see how Brussels bureaucrats will explain the resumption of Russian gas supplies by the traditional pipeline routes. I mean, ultimately Europe's going to have to accept the reality, whatever it may be. And if Russian gas starts flowing through Nord Stream again, Brussels bureaucrats will have to find a convincing explanation, but no doubt they will. They'll probably talk about pragmatism, the need to ensure energy security, and the fact that the situation in the world has now changed. However, the repercussions of this situation will persist, underscoring the intricate nature of energy policy, which is not a matter of numerical data and graphs, but a complex strategic domain where those who can anticipate future developments and calculate multiple scenarios in advance will likely prevail. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and click on the alert so you get informed when I post a new video. And if you want to help me out, click on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen and make a small donation. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all again soon.